Welcome to this Ability Clinic, where medicine goes back to medical school. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Van, and hopefully you've been following the awesome conversation we've been having with Thomas Reid, a leader in the disability advocacy movement and host and producer of Read My Mind Radio, a podcast featuring compelling people impacted by all degrees of blindness and disability. Let's jump right back into the conversation. You know, I'm in academic medicine, and I'm trying to teach, younger generations of healthcare professionals to be more inclusive, to be more comfortable with disability. What advice would you give me as an educator or, the trainees I'm trying to teach about interfacing with like the low vision and blind community?
Yeah, I would say in those situations to include people with disabilities and who have an opportunity, to give them an opportunity to kind of hear directly from people and interact. So I think, I've been involved with a couple of those, and sometimes they could be terrible, but they can also be good. Yeah. And I think the good ones usually include that opportunity to interact, because someone in the front of a conference room or on a stage or whatever, there's still that distance. Like there's that literal distance, but there's still the, so when you're done kind of hearing it, you just turn around and go back to your life, yada, 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 maybe digest some of what was said. But when you have the opportunity to interact and get to know people and ask them questions and, and just have longer discussions, I think that makes a difference.
In formal medical school settings, it's kind of like what you're describing. I think it's trying to innovate a little bit, but even when you have patients who are talking about their experience of all kinds of illnesses, disabilities, whatever, they're up on the stage, maybe their image is projected on a video prompt and there's a whole auditorium of students kind of listening. Maybe it's a little passive. Maybe they come up to a mic and ask a question, but you're right. It's not this kind of more intimate opportunity for connection that it could be.
Yeah.
It's hard to problem solve that.
I remember being involved. Now this is on a corporate thing that I did before. We had like a talk, and then we had a dinner. We basically sat at different tables, right? All the people who were involved. So we had the opportunity to interact with people just on hey, we're just eating dinner and just chilling, just regular talking. And that was so cool. Like we just had a good time. Like, and they saw like, oh, they're just like me. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about, whatever. Hey, what are you drinking? What am I drinking? Whatever, whatever the case was, right? And we're just having fun and just a regular conversation. Mm-hmm. And I think there should be more of that.
It's really good advice. Really good advice. And I would say like that's kind of what I was hoping to bypass, like with this channel, this thing that I'm doing, to have people on and kind of interface with them kind of face to face, I guess, through a screen, because it feels more intimate. It gives people the opportunity to share their story without being in front of 300 people, like, oh, everyone's staring at me right now. But, I'm just, again, very like honored and privileged that people have been willing to sit down and talk with me over Zoom and be like, yeah, you can put that up on the internet. That's fine. Like that's a huge vulnerability that people are putting themselves up for. And I really appreciate that. I think it helps me, but I really hope that it helps everyone who watches these videos.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think so. And I think, from the perspective of the person who's watching it, there's the intimacy, because there's a difference between watching something in an auditorium with 300 other people or whatever the case, and when you're watching it by yourself. It's like the whole power of the podcast is that this person is in your ear, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just you and what you're hearing. And that's why people think they know the person on the other side after a while. After you subscribe to a podcast and you listen for a while, you're like, oh yeah, I know that person. Oh, that's my man. Like you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I know I did that. I definitely, and I still do that, with certain podcasts I listen to.
Same here. And I feel like it's particularly easy in the disability community because you quickly find things you have in common with people. Mm-hmm. People are sharing very similar ideas, even though you're coming from very different backgrounds usually, or experiences. Yeah. So that feeling of connection is pretty addictive.
Yeah. And even outside, because Questlove, I think he and I are best friends. And
oh my God, I love Questlove.
He needs to meet me. We need to be best friends because Hey Quest, if you're listening by some chance, okay, you need to come on my podcast also. You can come on yours too. But the reason I say that is because Questlove watches things with audio description.
And do you think that's because he appreciates the effort that goes into it, or he appreciates the accessibility of it? Like, do you know why he does that?
I don't. That's why he needs to come on my podcast,
Yeah.
so we could talk about it. And I mean, I have a bunch of questions around it, and we talk about. So some folks think that that would be a big help for folks like Questlove and others to to talk about it. And I think it could be. I think it could be. I'm not real big on the idea that if non-disabled people, sighted people start using audio description, that it's going to grow, that it's going to be on more things. I'm not convinced of that. And even part of that kind of annoys me, to be totally honest with you. It kind
Like,
of
yeah,
annoys me.
like stay in your lane.
Not even like stay in your lane, but it's like more like, oh, now we can get it because y'all want it. You know what I
Oh, I
mean?
see. I see
Like
what you
there's something that's kind of messed up about that to me. Like it just really bothers me. But the fact that Questlove watches it with AD and is critical about it. Like that's the whole thing is that he commented on it was Dave Chappelle's and
mean.
it was Shree Gordon from IDC and he tweeted out like, hey, this one right here, this was done great. This she needs to be the voice on stuff. Like that's pretty cool. Not that he needs
That's
to say
pretty
that
cool.
about mine. I'm not saying that. But just like I want to talk to him like why? Because he has to have a different perspective than I do because he's also visual. He's visually watching. So I want to know more about that story. I want to know why Questlove is so into and because he's such a media consumer.
Yeah. I'm super curious now as well, because I didn't know this about Questlove, even though, love him for many other reasons. But
Yeah.
I think we're also getting into that weird territory of like disclosure. No one's entitled to know exactly why someone wants or needs accommodations, except for the people who, are, I guess, legally required to provide accommodations when it comes to education. That's
Right.
that's the lens that I've seen it in. And so if Questlove is like giving feedback about audio descriptions, that is awesome. But who knows? Maybe he's low vision. Maybe he has a
Right.
family member who has low vision.
Maybe.
Or maybe he likes it for whatever reason.
Right. Right.
I feel weird because, meeting lots of people with different disabilities, like I know I'm not entitled to that information, but as a
Yeah.
doctor, I get a lot of intimate personal details about people's lives
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
otherwise wouldn't be shared. So
Yeah.
I always feel like I got to be real sensitive when I wonder or I'm curious about someone's needs.
No, that's a great point. As a podcast host, we're privy to some information too.
Yeah.
To be totally honest with you, right? Because sometimes in the midst of a conversation, someone might say something. I always tell people, if you don't want me to say that, I mean, publish that, just let me know. Like that,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. So if Quest did have some sort of information that he didn't want, probably like by all means, I wouldn't say anything. But I would encourage him if that were the case, because I think number one, I'm going to be real sensitive to that, and I'm not going to share it in a negative light. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that it would do more good um, than anything. I think it would do. I think it would definitely do more good than anything else. So even if it were something that, like, if he were low vision or whatever the case may be, um, yeah, I think he's in a position where nothing is going to mess him. Like, why would that? Yeah. Oh man, that
I
goes
hope
into.
so. And if there
Ooh.
were people who had negative shit to say about it, it's like forget them. Like no one's gonna listen to them. Like
Yeah, I'll tell them to point them to me. I'll talk to them.
yeah.
I'll talk to them for. Oh
I think
man,
that's a
but
good point.
wow, we get into so much right there. Like wow, the whole disability in music, and especially hip hop and just ableism in hip hop.
Oh my
Whew,
God, did you hear about the ASL performers for the Super Bowl
I
halftime
did.
show?
Yeah, yeah. They were told what was that basically? No, we're not putting you on the main channel. You get the one in the back. Go through the back door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's been a huge response from the deaf community, people who use sign language, and I've been like skimming through it on social media. But basically, you had to know about it beforehand, that you'd have
Uh
to
huh.
download an app and register with all this personal information and like have a certain cable account or whatever. There
Crazy.
were lots of hoops to jump through that seemed super unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's
so is
awful.
that accessibility? Like, it seems like the worst version of accessibility. It's like, here's your ASL, let's dangle it in front of you in front of like 50 like hoops that are on fire.
Yeah, and you had to have a certain level of privilege there, because
Yeah,
you had to have the cable access. I mean, the Super Bowl is just on regular television, right? So
right.
that person doesn't have to have cable to watch television. But if the deaf person doesn't have cable, they can't watch it. They have to have an app. That means they have to have a cell phone. Come on, there's too many issues with that.
Definitely. So
Awful.
while it was probably the most accessible Super Bowl halftime show we've ever had, there's still so much room for improvement. So I
How
think
was it accessible though, outside of the fact that they said they were going to do that,
I
and
guess
they put it on? Yeah.
because there were deaf performers doing the halftime show and some people saw it. I feel like that is a huge improvement compared to previous years where, maybe it's been one performer or maybe it's usually just been the national anthem, I believe. That's
Mm,
been the majority of Super Bowls. So in that sense, yes, yay, good job, but like kind of missed some opportunities there. So
mm.
hopefully next year they can be better. I mean, the deaf community, I
Yeah.
think they're going to rally and like, write letters to Fox because it's going to be on Fox next year. So
Okay.
um,
Okay.
I'm really excited to kind of follow that because Fox has an opportunity to kind of, do something
Yeah.
good for once.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're nicer than me. You
I'm a
see the
very nice person.
Yeah, yeah. You have on the rose color. No, I don't want to even say rose colored glasses, but you have more rose in your glasses than I do. Yeah, like I see the optimism, and I try to be an optimistic person, but at the same time, it's like, ooh, the disrespect that I see too is just, whoa, like
Yeah,
that
it's a bad
just,
taste in the mouth.
yeah. Like even the commercial where it was someone with macular degeneration. It was a quiet commercial, and they had writing on the screen. They're talking about somebody with macular degeneration. I don't even know what the commercial was for.
Toyota. Start your impossible.
And there was no audio description. So the person in the commercial can't even enjoy that commercial. My wife was she was waiting for the halftime show,
Yeah.
and I came downstairs, and then it was quiet, and she said, "Oh, look at this commercial. The guy has macular degeneration," and I'm like, all I hear is nothing. I'm like, "This is terrible." I said, "No audio description," and she was like, "Yeah, no, 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 this is awful." I said, "Yeah, it is," and I went back
I feel like
upstairs.
that's almost a parody.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
look, we're helping like boost disability representation on TV, and there's just this quiet commercial of a blind person, and other
yeah.
blind people are like, "What the hell are they selling?"
Yeah, it happens. It happens all the time, not just with the commercial, but even with movies. When it's it could be a film about a blind person. There's no audio description. Come
Mm.
on, y'all. It's terrible. It's terrible. Anyway, that's me being me.
I wouldn't want anything else.
Yep.
Man, I feel like we've talked about so much awesome stuff, Thomas.
Yeah. No, this is cool. Cool. I appreciate it, and thank you for inviting me. This was really nice.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so
Yeah.
happy to have you on. I'm honored. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit the like button and subscribe to Disability Clinic for more accessible and educational content. I
I'm
usually,
sorry. Hit the like button. Hit the
yeah.
like button.
Say it louder for the people in the
That's
back.
right. That's right. Hit the like if you know it's good for your life. There you
Okay, thank you. I needed that.
go.
Thomas will definitely be back to break down some notable representations of blindness in popular media. But in the meantime, if you want to check out any of the other things we discussed, like Thomas's podcast, Questlove's podcast, the ASL performances from the Super Bowl halftime show 2022, and the deaf community's response to its supposed accessibility, all of that is linked down in the description. Until next time, thank you for watching, listening, and learning.